Perfect. Hi,
Hi.
Leri Hanson. Thank you. Thank you for being with me here. This is just fun for me. I I don't know why I started doing this, but I'm like I just tried to do it through some other ways and it's like, you know what, I'm just going to do it myself. I'm just going to interview people that I think are cool and interesting and have an interesting perspective. So, yeah. Did you grow up in California?
I did
You did. You've been there your whole life.
all my life.
When did you get into dogs?
I've been into dogs all my life, I think. Not just dogs, but animals. We had stables and horses, and I did the gymkhana and the hunters and jumpers and all of that stuff as a child. Like going
Oh.
to school, I was doing horses. Um, and then when I got married to my first husband, I had to downsize my hobbies. So um, got rid of the horses and got some dogs and did some fun stuff, but never any formal training or competitions. And then it was my current husband um, that had a really bad dog, a really bad pit bull dog, and so obedience became really important to us. And every dog we got after that, I made sure was obedience trained, and some of them didn't even need it, but that was such a standing foundation with me to train them. And back then it was, yank and crank.
Hmm.
So,
Is that is that how you started with pit bulls? Is that
yeah, my husband had I knew of pit bulls. I had a friend who had a really nice lab pit mix that was a wonderful dog, really good dog, looked like a pit bull dog, but had the temperament of a lab. And my husband always had pit bull dogs, and that was one of the things he says that won me over. Is he'd pick me up for a date, we'd go have dinner and a movie, and then we'd go back to his house and we'd get his dog and we'd take his dog out hiking or to the park, and he'd say, "Dig, Aldo, dig." Aldo go into the ground like a go to ground dog, and we just got such a kick out of that. So yeah, it was my husband really that got us into it, and then we picked up our first show dog. We picked up out of the penny saver, which is a little free paper that we have here. $250. Went, picked him out. How I selected him was he was the first pup to come running up to the fence, and he had a little white snip on his nose, which I thought was really cute. So I was all about the color. I didn't know any different, right?
yeah?
Um, and he ended up being a good dog.
What year was that?
Oh gosh, that had to be, let's see, 85.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
And you've had pit bulls in some way or another ever since.
Yeah, right now I don't have one. I have, leave me back there. I have the bully, but I don't have any pit bull right now.
Okay. Because you the thing is you've when I met you you had Capone.
Hmm.
And I knew of you from before that from videos, because back then it was like if you were able to get a VHS tape, and see something. And that's what it was. But you had a Malinois then, and I think that might have been Rommel, maybe.
Yes, you remember Rommel. Oh,
Yeah,
bless her. Hmm.
yeah, I remember Rommel. Yeah, beautiful. Um, but so I saw that, and then I saw you with Capone, and I was at the time training presses, and I think even like at the same time when you were competing in level two, I think we were still horsing around with presses at like, ring one, trying to teach an escort and stuff.
That's,
But I remember saying to you, remember Capone when he came out for bite work, and remember Paulo Chiappetta?
yes.
He was the other decoy, right? And I don't know. He had this thing where he would call me before a trial, and such a small world back then. There was not really any internet, and he would tell me about all the dogs that are going to be in the trial, and he's like, Capone's going to kill you, and all this kind of stuff. It was funny. And but what happened was when I walked out on the field to do something with him, it was a flea or a face or something. It was like 85 degrees, and uh, he had just finished, jumps and obedience and everything, and his mouth was closed. And I'm like, he's not even panting. I'm like, oh no, I'm finished. I said, oh my God, So, but he was in incredible shape. Maybe it was, being out there, but his conditioning was just incredible. And then And then you had, and then at the same time, I think you had, or just after you had Changa, your Malinois, who's still alive, huh?
My little angel, yeah, she's back there sleeping. Her brother Tosco just recently passed away, so it makes me look at her through a different eye now. Like, I try to cherish every day that we have together. She's just an incredible dog.
Yeah, yeah. You won the championships with her, didn't you?
I did, I
Yeah,
did.
the female.
Yep, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, nowadays there's all sorts of great bitches out there competing,
yeah,
but back then, it was few and far between
yeah,
at that level.
yeah, yeah. At that level, for sure. Yeah, but that was a pretty good litter though, too. At the same time,
But
because
good litter,
yeah,
yes, yeah. Well,
Adrian's dog,
mhm.
So yeah, and then Thad's dog, that was a pretty crazy, but super, super good dog. All coming from that, from Rodan, when he came around, he just, But so she must be 13, huh?
You just
Probably.
13 in July. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
And mentioning Rodan, I was kind of following Waleed around to some of the seminars that he was doing, local, semi-local, Arizona, Northern California, etc. And I love Waleed because he gave me some um, really good tips on how to, when you don't really have a decoy, things you can do to prepare your dog for when it is in front of the decoy. So I did a lot of that with Capone, and then Wally would talk to me on the side, and if you're ever ready for another Malinois, Larry, and I had Rommel, and Rommel was a wonderful pet. I'm going to say that he was a wonderful pet that let me get out there and play a little bit, but. I was looking at Wally's website one time, and that Rodan dog, I thought he was something special looking at his videos. And I liked the fact that he was really small but mighty. And I said, if you ever have a breeding with him, stupid me, I didn't even care about the bitch. I just liked that stud a lot. And sure enough, I whelped that lizard, right?
No, really?
Yeah. So I had made arrangements. I wanted a dog out of that litter. And Wally called me, I don't know, gosh, she must have been 30 days into it. And he says, hey, I just want to let you know I'm in the process of moving, and I got to sell some dogs. And Tosca is one of the ones that's going. That was the dam. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. And he goes, I'm in the process of moving, Larry. I just can't do it right now. And I'm like, ship her here. I'll do it for you. So he did.
Wow.
I'm like, is she okay? Because I'm used to kind of dopey pit bulldogs that love everybody. And Malinois are different. They're just different. And he says, yeah, she should be fine. And she was. She was delightful. And she was kind of funny too, because when she had the babies, she was a brood bitch. I mean, I think this was like her sixth litter. It was like an Easter egg hunt. I whelped him in the middle bedroom, the guest room, and every time I'd go in there, I'd have, where are those puppies? She'd hide them, and not all in one spot. They'd be in different places. So that's just kind of a fun fact about the Tosca Rodan litter.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing I've never seen. Because I bought a female from Danny Maison in France that was a Rockside daughter.
Okay.
And Rockside was Rodin's brother.
Oh, okay.
And I had Lot, who was Rodin's son too.
Oh,
And
wow.
I did a breeding with those two, which
Mm.
was very, very interesting. But I love that stuff, but there's just so cracked out.
Yeah.
I'm older now, and now it's like I just don't got it in me.
Let me ask you, Mark, when you say cracked out, like in the work or to live with, or what was your experience with them?
Well, it's just so much experience, because my first Malinois was the dog that I kept, until he died. He died last year. He was 12. Um, yeah, I mean, just psychotic, I mean, psychotic in the work. He was like, how, like, I swear, when he would bite, his eyes would roll back in his head. He'd go to another place. He was perfect in terms of cleanliness. Like, he was super clean. He was outing beautifully. always always a real team player, but just had that you know kind of edge to him, you know. And then living with him was okay. I mean, he was a great dog to have around if you had space, but if you were inside, he was, kind of pacey. And
Mm-hmm.
it was, but really, I mean, in terms of like socially, I had to raise him a certain way because he came and he was, I don't know if you want to call it aggression or what you want to call it, but I had to socialize him a way that was avoidance kind of a way that
Mm-hmm.
ended up working out beautifully. So by the time he was 3, it was great. But just the twitchy, super super fine tuned, sharp reactions, stuff like that. Yeah, because I have a Dutch Shepherd now who's like a German Shepherd. So it's just a much rounder mental, much more forgiving of little mistakes. It's a,
Still
you
doing
know,
the presses too, though.
pardon me?
Are you still doing the presses too at all for training?
No, no,
That's too bad.
no, we're not doing, we got out of owl breeding and yeah, yeah,
Wow. Poodles for a while there.
yeah.
Those?
Nope, nope. We don't breed. All we do now is train, and we have our old Malinois, who is a son of Lot, who would be a grandson of Rodan. He's 9 now, and then we have our little poodle who's 12. And yeah, I mean, it was just when you look at all everything, it just didn't really make sense for us to breed anymore. So but anyway, regardless though, what I'm why I want to ask you about pit bulls because we had a conversation. I don't know if you remember. We had a conversation at the championships, I think, in 2007 about pit bulls, and I was like, I'm going to tell this. I'm going to tell this person. I just went through lady, girl, person. It's like, how should I say? I'm gonna tell her how I feel about pit bulls, or at least my thoughts on how they are, and I'm gonna see what she thinks. And the thing is, we had this really nice, insightful talk about pit bulls, and you really got it. As far as I'm concerned, you really understood how they work, not how they work, how they function, how their minds function, what they truly are. And there's a lot of people, I would say the vast majority, that really don't. And one of the reasons you do is because you train.
Mm-hmm.
And when you train, you push dogs through thresholds, right? And you just tap into places that you otherwise don't tap into. And it seems like most people, of course, the regular pet dog people, and sorry, but like the bleeding hearts who want to rescue the pit bulls, they don't have any clue. But even the people who are into like the hard dog movement, they don't have any clue because they're not ever pushing the thresholds, making a dog do something it doesn't really want to do. So, and you've done all that to a great degree because then you had Cassie, who you got ring 3 on, and I never saw this dog, never worked this dog, just saw I think a video once and some pictures, but that's an insane accomplishment for a pit bull, which means the training had to be vigilant and diligent, but also really smart and crafty, you know. So, what was that like training
Cassie,
Cassie?
Cassie was cool. She was, gosh, um, I've trained and titled a few pit bull dogs, and my first one in protection sports was Whole Lotta Rosie, and she was a bitch also. I took to Schutzhund 3, and I'm sure you've heard of Al Banuelos, who's a pioneer of American Bulldogs.
Yep.
Al was my trainer at the time, and I was brand new. And the reason I met up with Al was because Annetta Cheek, owner of Baroness Schutzhund 3, that was trained and handled by Tom and Holly Rose, went to DVG Nationals. Annetta had contacted me about my stud dog. Well, he wasn't really a stud, but my male, Capone's grandfather, who was Frazier. And she says, I've got this bitch. She's Schutzhund 3. She's blah. And I'm like, Schutzhund, what's that? Um, so she hooked me up with Bob and Marla Taylor out in the desert. And I went out to meet them and have my pit bull Frazier tested. And Al was out there with him. And I had no idea what he was going to do. I mean, he was a pretty social dog, pretty easygoing, and even okay with other dogs for the most part. and he was just kind of a natural, and it surprised me, pleasantly surprised me. Um, but I kind of believed at that time that in order to have a dog that would bite a sleeve, I kind of had to have a little bit of aggression. And I guess in a way it does, but I looked at the aggression differently back then as opposed to what I do now. So Fraser's daughter, Fraser was a little bit older when we had him tested, and he had blown out a knee, so he was done doing anything. But I had his daughter, who I almost got rid of her a couple times just because she was a pain in the butt. She was dog aggressive. She could be a little edgy with people. She wasn't much to look at. She was a grand champion in the UKC, but she's a little bit long, a little bit lanky, kind of a smaller head. And I cropped her way too short, so she looked like a fighting dog. Anyway, Al once said about her, she is the hardest fighting bitch that he's ever worked, and that was of any breed. And I remember that, and I still hold him to that. And every now and then when I see him, which isn't often, I go, you remember, you said that about Rosie. And he says, well, at the time, she was. But that's a long time ago. So I had taken Rose, and looking back on it now, I think that if I had a clue what I was doing, I did what Al told me to do. And Al was learning too. You know, he was still pretty, I say pretty green into it. He had Icon Predator. I think he was just starting with Lestat when I came in with Goose. So it was several years down the road, but I was pretty green, and I did back then the electric collars, the transmitter was this big baton, and in order to change the level, you had to take the collar off, take the plugs out, put a higher plug in. So it was such an obvious to the dogs, yikes, what are you doing to me? And how stupid I was. Rosie would see me coming with the box, and boom, she was out of there. I mean, it's how horrible the training was at that time. And not the help that I got, but what I did to the dogs. I didn't know better. I was learning myself. So now when I look back on it, I think Rosie might have been the best pit bull dog I had, although Cassie she was an incredible. She was fun. She was really fun. She wasn't very fun to live with, but she was very fun to work. I actually felt like I had a partner. Like, she liked getting out there with me. But I'm going to say this as well. There was a time in the first couple of years, this was with Rosie, this was with Chonga, this was with Cassie, that I thought, I'm sending this dog back. This dog doesn't want to work with me. It's not a team player. And my dear friend Laura, my training director, Adrian's wife, a dear friend of mine, she'd say, no, give it time. And I'd get upset about something, and Adrian say, oh, they're still young, just give it time. And son of a gun if he wasn't right. So I have a tendency to be a little impatient at times. But Cassie came to me from Billy Reyes in Arizona. And Billy had some tough dogs, and he brought I'd seen him at an event in Arizona, and he's like, you ready for another pit bull dog? And I said, yeah, but I want a female. I want something for Capone. Capone was a dear soul. Capone as a puppy was an old soul, and he had wonderful qualities about him, but he wasn't the best ring dog. He was very honest, and he was very consistent, but look, when you run out of time on the flea attack, that's a problem. And I mean, let's call it what it is. He had a nice big bite. He was a good jumper. His obedience was generally full points. There were never any surprises with Capone. If I had a good day, it was like awesome. But even if I had a bad day, it wasn't a big surprise. It was what he was. Yeah. So I wanted, but I liked the traits about him. I wanted a nice, strong, game-bred female to take back to him, to take to him. And so Billy says, yeah, I've got this litter coming up, and I think it'd be a good match for you. So he comes out, brings two little ugly fawn puppies to the house. He ended up staying the weekend, and I'll never forget. We had the two pups in a crate in the corner. Didn't want to separate them because maybe they'd be more comfortable if they were together. And Cassie, she barked and barked and barked and barked and barked. She did not stop barking. It didn't matter what you did. You could knock the crate, cover the crate, reach in there, shake her. She just barked and barked. Well, that was a Cassie thing, and that's something that I learned about her, and she was very honest about it very early on. Of the two pups, I played with them for the weekend, and one was really sweet, very affectionate, very social, give you a lot of natural eye contact. Um, but she didn't have that natural aggression. So Cassie, although she didn't care about me, she wouldn't look at me really, she didn't care. But when she bit, she was so into what she had, and really shaking it up and committed to it. I said, I'm going to try this one. And one of my favorite videos that I have on my YouTube channel is her at about, I think she's 9 weeks, because he brought him like right around 7 weeks. And a friend of mine is holding her back, just with his hands, and I got a little baby jambier on, and I said, let her go. And she came and she bit, and I'm kind of working. I'm doing way more than I should have, especially with a pit bulldog. But she did it. And I'm like, from now on, every pup I get in the future will have to do at least this. And that's kind of where I'm at with it now. I don't want to, and I've probably washed several dogs that probably would have been fine and are fine for their people. But there's something special that I want in the dogs, and I want to see it early. I have found with the pit bulldogs that sometimes that something special that you see early doesn't last. Like as soon as you start to out, or as soon as you start to control, or as soon as they're done teething, things change. And so when I see that, I'm like, okay, move you right along. And I'm not. It's not something I'm proud of that I do that. A lot of people say that I watch too fast or too soon, and perhaps I do. But I'm getting too old to sit on a dog too long. I need a partner that wants to do it as much as I do, and it's not going to be easy. We're going to come across bumps in the road for sure. But you got to be a player. You got to be a team player. You can't sometimes be committed to it and sometimes not. So,
yeah.
Cassie was into it all.
You just made some huge points, though, that kind of was what I was talking about earlier, as you said, because we had the same experience with Presses, exactly, where what you see as a puppy, I mean, we have videos of this female we had, Belka, working with Joe Sonante at like 7, 8 weeks, hanging off a rag, taking stick hits like crazy. And at 7 months, she didn't care about biting. It was the last thing she wanted to do. We ran through this, and especially like you said, this is where that hard dog thing kind of started to drive me crazy. Was once teething is over, or once you've done a little bit too much work and they become bored, or God forbid you ask them to out, or you put control, right? That's what happens. You put control into this stuff, and then all of a sudden they go, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
This is no fun anymore. That's why I thought when I saw Capone, I was like, oh man, this dog's like, he's either like a good boy, willing, like just a. My friend Sonny had a Bouvier female who was kind of like that too, who's like, she didn't care. I mean, she'd rather just lay there than go down the field and bite, but she'd do it. She'd do it and it was almost like one of those Lassie type stories, where mom said so, so just go do it. Yeah.
I have to tell you a funny story about Capone. I leased his mother, and I wanted a nice male dog for the future. And I got 11 puppies, 4 males. So I kept all 4 for about a year. I figured, the cream will rise, right? And I went to a Francis Metcalf. I love Francis. I love you. And I sincerely do. I think the world of Francis.
Yeah.
And I went to one of his seminars up north. And I took the last 2 that I had, which was Junior, who's now a Schutzen 3, and Capone. And I was pretty tickled with these pups. I thought they were pretty good pups. And I got out there with, I don't even know which pup it was, to tell you the truth. And at this point, it didn't. Capone was not my pick. he actually picked me. He was not the one I wanted. The one I wanted came across some other issues, and I had to let him go. But Francis, he does a great little speech and seminar, and from the very beginning, from the ground up on what he's doing. So he's demonstrating, especially with these young dogs. They must have been maybe 8 months, 8, 9 months, and he starts with a rag, and then he goes to a tug, and then a jambiere, and then a bigger jambiere, and then up to the suit. It was Junior, and so I come out with Junior, and he goes to the rag, fine, and then once Francis gets to the tug, Junior's like, "No, where's the rag?" That was his thing. He was very preferential. Whatever bit first was the only thing he was going to bite that particular. And can you see me?
I can. Hang on. Yeah, we should be good. We'll be
Sorry,
okay.
I've got a call coming through. It's my husband. Sorry, honey. I'll call you back in a minute. So anyway, he wouldn't bite the tug. He wouldn't bite the next level item. And I said, "But Francis, he'll bite the suit." And he goes, "I don't care if he'll bite the suit. He needs to bite whatever you put in front of him." And I went, wow. I mean, it really took the wind out of my sails. And I left that day in tears. I drove home in tears. I was so hurt. My hero just really shot me down hard. But he's right. I mean, he's absolutely right. Yeah, I get it now. At the time, I didn't. But I get it now.
Yeah. It's harsh.
Yeah.
It is.
And that particular dog, so like if Adrian was in the blue suit, he'd do a nice little face, much better entry than his littermate brother Capone. If Adrian was in the suit, he'd do a nice little face. And then if Scott Williams came out for a defensive handler, well, Scott was well, forget it. Where's the guy in the blue? I only want the guy in the blue. So when my friend Annetta showed an interest in him, because he still is a good-looking dog. Well, I think he's dead now, but he was a good-looking dog, really, really handsome dog. She showed an interest in him for Schutzen. I said, "Gosh, that might be perfect." I mean, it's just one sleeve, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't change. Color doesn't change. Size doesn't change. And it worked out okay. However, I'm going to tell you this too. Oh, I hope Ron Marshall doesn't see this. So, Ron was one of Annetta's trainers at the time, and they kind of, because Capone spent some time on the East Coast with Ron and Okie to kind of bring him up to snuff, and spent more time there than he was supposed to. And really, I mean, bless the guys' hearts for trying to work. It really didn't change anything. But Ron thought that it was probably my decoy work that was making the dog the way he is. I said, "Well, I don't know. I'm telling you, because I went to a lot of different people to try and get him figured out. Nobody ever could. So I think it is what it is." So they got through the Schutzen 1, and they got through the Schutzen 2, and even got through. I don't know if he made 3 at this trial or if he was already a 3. But Butch Henderson, the handler of Aguirre, very famous Doberman, was Junior's handler. And they made a mistake. Junior's a little older at this point. They warmed him up in the parking lot, like you've been doing, Schutzen. You go to the side, tracking, obedience, stuff, getting him ready for the protection, do a little guarding and barking. Then they took him onto the field, getting ready for the blind search. What did Junior do? He tried to get back into the parking lot where he had just done a guard and bark on his training decoy. That was what I had seen as a puppy, the little stinker. So not that I was like, woohoo, good, you finally saw it. But in a way I was. I'm like, doesn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What is it? So now, what is it that you see? Well, I'm trying to think of how I can approach this so people can. What are the things you like about pit bulls? What are some of the characteristics about them opposed to other breeds? Because you've had tons of other breeds. I don't even know what that thing is behind you. What is that? A Schnauzer? What is
That's
that?
a Schnauzer. Luke. Luther is a Schutzen 3. He's a import from Germany. My first experience. I absolutely adore the breed. I think I need to let him out. Do you need outside? He's old too now. One of the things I think one of the main things I like about the pit bulls is that they're really forgiving of my many mistakes. Whereas, and I know you know this, Mark, if you do something stupid with a Malinois or a Dutch,
Yeah.
you're going to regret that a little later. It's going to take a lot of undoing, and because pit bulls don't get it quite as fast, you're allotted a few more mistakes than with your traditional working breeds, in my opinion and experience.
Yeah, I have a saying with Malinois: for every problem you fix, you create three others. Pretty much.
I like that.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
I like
But
athletic ability.
mhm.
Uh, I really didn't with with both Capone and Cassie. I didn't run into any issues with the jumps, and Cassie went max at level 3. Capone went max at level 2, and he was just kind of a power jumper. He didn't put a whole lot of energy into anything, but he was pretty steady
Mhm.
throughout. So he never overheated or rarely overheated or did anything like that. Cassie, on the other hand, she had a tendency in healing. She'd be barking. Positions, she could be barking. Jumps, she could be barking. She worked it out as we went up the levels. But the other thing too is I've kind of become a ring 1 kind of gal. I've done ring 3 with a couple dogs, a few dogs now, and it's a great experience. But it's really hard, not only on the dog but on the handler too. It requires a special team, a special person, and I just don't know if I have another ring 3 in me. However, I do want my next dog to have the ability to go there if I wanted to. I doubt if I'll go there, but in the event that I do, I want it to be able
Yeah, yeah. It's like car shopping, or I'm in the same exact boat as you, and I just have one, and I think about, and we train pretty much every day for ring or Mondio ring type stuff because this is what I do. This is what I know how to do. It's good for him. It's good for me. But will we ever do it? It's like, man, when I think about driving, you know, going to the field in the rain, staying in Motel 6,
to. Yeah.
all this stuff. And then, and I'm hyper paranoid too. And ring, the thing is about ring compared to at least Mondio ring is hard on dogs.
Yeah, it is.
Very, very hard, and I'm not a fan. And then at the end of the day, and it's like, a lot of guys want to test their dogs, on like hard guys. And the thing is, for me, I go, well, look, I mean, if I don't know, like, I don't care. It's not important to me. If my dog comes away with a torn ACL because he couldn't catch the guy in the air, then it's not really worth it to me. So, and there's, I mean, obviously we should all train to the max of whatever we're doing, and whenever you're training, you should train your best. But I know what you're saying because it's like there's a certain standard that you have now where you could never post the dog out for the rest of your life, but you need a dog that has the goods
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because
absolutely. I don't know where, but probably not. I haven't. I'm not training or handling any dogs right now, and I haven't since February. The last 2 dogs I competed were not my dogs. I handled them for somebody else, and talking about the travel and the expense and the dedication and the commitment and the heartache and the blood and the sweat and the tears of campaigning a dog. Last year I did that with a Malinois Hasna, and Hasna actually was an import for Kathy O'Brien, and then Kathy was not well. So Kathy handed the dog over to Adrian, and Adrian brought her out to training one day, and I'm like, oh, what are you doing with Hasna? Like, I'm going to keep her for a while. Kathy's not well. And I said, well, are you going to handle her, train her? He's like, no, I've got too many dogs. I'm like, I'll do it. And I was kind of in between dogs. I had a young pit bull dog, very young though. I didn't know what his future was. And she's like, yeah, sure. And Kathy was happy with that too. And I was really just kind of looking to ring one her, but she was a neat dog. I mean, and as I went on with her, I was saying, Adrian, you need to find her handler because she's trying to bond with me. She wants me to be her person, and I don't know if I don't want another Malinois. I love the breed. They're an incredible breed, but they're not the breed for me. And Sandra, I wouldn't trade her for the world, but she's my last Malinois. And Hasna gave me an experience that I will never ever have again, and that was to go to Mexico and do the championship, to go to the Intercontinental in France, um, to the CIC selection. It was a lot of fun, and I will never be able to do that with a pit bull dog, and very unlikely that I'll ever have another Malinois to attempt to make a team or to go to one of those events again. So it was great. It was great, and wonderful memories. But um, I don't necessarily have this driving force inside of me saying, "Get into the dog so you can do it again, Larry." What I want is another pit bulldog so I can maybe go ring one and be the ring one champion for life.
Yeah.
Every year one. You know what? Ring one's very doable for any dog with a good temperament, that likes to bite a little bit and play. You can do ring one
Hmm.
forever and a day.
Yeah.
To go and once you start moving up, then it starts getting a little trickier.
Yeah, it does. But you're right, and the thing is when you're working with a dog like that, there's challenges with just within the regular training. You mentioned something earlier when you were talking about the guy who was saying it's your decoy work. It was maybe it was Ron who was saying, it's the decoy work. Bad decoy work will ruin a dog.
Sure.
It really will. But at the same time, so as you've seen, like if you take like that Rodan litter, more or less, or like the litter that my dog. I mean, even if you have bad decoy work, the dog is still going to have this certain genetic biting, and call it integrity or whatever you want to call it, right? And it's really hard to. I mean, maybe you can make him chewy or shifty if you're careless or something. But the thing is with what I ended up encountering, because I learned I started working dogs that weren't Pressas, Bulldogs, Pit Bulls, German Shepherds, show German Shepherds, dogs that aren't that inclined to bite. So I learned how to manipulate myself in order to make them feel better in the moment. In the moment, none of that's, and I thought, well, maybe this will transfer. But none of it transfers. Once you get, I remember I had a German Shepherd I was training for a guy for a long time who was like doing some great fun stuff. I mean, in the place here, we're doing like, I don't know, 150-meter face attacks through the trees and up and down hills and stuff. And the dog was awesome. And my buddy Frank came here from France, who's a French ring decoy and a French ring trainer. Like he wasn't really a dog trainer, so to speak, so his way of decoying was very French ring-ish, and it wasn't like, so, and he worked this, and the dog would like stop biting him after 2 or 3 seconds, and the dog looked at him like, you're not doing this right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good reminder also. Rommel was kind of one of those dogs. He liked his decoys, and he looked pretty good on his decoys. But when somebody new or a new suit came in, you had to get him feeling good and comfortable, and that's not my favorite type of temperament to work. Yeah.
Yeah. It's easier to cap than to build.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. So anyway, what do you look for though if you're looking for in the pit bull? I mean, what do you look for overall? I know you like certain like you could talk about work specifically too, because I know there's a lot of people coming from at least our old Red Star stuff who are into working Maloser type dogs, bully breeds and stuff, and I really think a lot of them got the wrong idea. In terms of what they need in the dog, because they think they need this big tough dog, but they never teach it to out, and then they never really figure out what the potentials are. So what are some of the things that you look for if you're looking for,
Um,
dog or puppy?
Okay, I'm going to back up for just a second because when you were talking just a second ago about the guys wanting to test the dogs or wanting these tough dogs, and right now there's a group of guys kind of local that are doing personal protection with some pit bull dogs that look really good, really, really good, and I think to myself, shoot, gosh, if I had that dog in ring sport, he'd be good. He'd be damn good. Um, but sport in their mind is it's kind of babyish. It's not real. They want the dog to bite for real. And I don't know if the dog will bite for real or not. To me, it doesn't matter. I'd probably like it less if it did. But with what they're doing with it now, I really like the commitment, what the dog is going through to get it. And the dog looks really clear in the head. So um, there's probably more of those types of pit bull dogs than there are people who are actually trying to do some like a legitimate sport with them. Um, On to what I look for. I had a puppy. He gosh would have been 2 years old now. I got him from a breeder, and I loved his mother. She was a pretty incredible dog, and a bitch. And so there was a litter from her, and I was really happy with him. I was incredibly happy with him. My first time really free shaping things, and wow, how powerful free shaping is. And so he was like right on target, and then above for what I've done with a pup like, at that age. But I noticed something interesting with him, and he wasn't much to look at. And I don't care. You can be really ugly, but if you're good, well, I don't want to say just like my husband. Um, I noticed that at turn, I could be just outside while the dogs are being agitated, or on a bungee, right there, tied out on a bungee. And I could be just outside of that fence, and he's sitting there, focusing on me or laying down or whatever. And I'm like, hey, come on, wake up a little bit. Nothing. But as soon as I would take him out and back tie him, he was tight in the line. And I had mentioned that to Adrian and the other decoys a time or two, and they're like, well, good for you, Larry. You got the best of both worlds. He's calm on the outside, but he steps up, when you bring him on. But there was more to it than that. I could tell, if I shifted his crate to, a couple inches over or to the other side of the room, he was hitting it. Okay, that's weird. He was a little hesitant to come out of the truck at night in particular. Um, Especially at night, I was seeing other things. Come to find out, this one broke my heart. Come to find out, he was blind. He was almost completely blind at 8 months, and I was just devastated. And this was about the time that Hosna came into my life. Thank goodness, So she kind of padded that pain for me. But what I liked about him, and maybe when we chose the pups, Kylie Gem and I went and got the two littermate brothers together. Mine was much quicker to start than hers, but both of the pups were super social. When we drove to New Mexico, super social. Very friendly, nice bite drive. They chase, kind of a natural retrieve. On the way home, Kylie and I would do things, we would do like a little focus work, a little food focus work on the side of the road when we're stopping for gas. And, the pups were into it, so that was kind of cool. We even stopped at the river because it was hot. Both the pups, they went into the water. They were super confident. Yeah, but sound. The dog, like I said, I don't really care what it looks like, but it structurally needs to be sound. Um, that's another thing. I don't want to put a bunch of time and energy and emotion into a dog that physically can't hold up. And as you said earlier, it's a tough sport. And I'm not so sure with my next dog. I would love to do ring. Um, but ring is so demanding.
Mhm.
And even with the club, if I'm not training ring with scabbers, I'm not going to be training ring. There's no other group that I would want to work with locally. Not saying that there's not other good trainers or other good clubs, but Scabber is my home. Um, but if I'm not training with Scabber, I'm not going to do ring. I might toy with PSA or SDA. I think there's another protection um, thing out there right now that I don't think requires quite the commitment that ring does. And here's the other thing about ring sport. You know, when you're talking about what do you look for in a dog, well, it's also what do you look for in a club or what do you look for
Yeah.
in a decoy? Because French ring, in my opinion, more so than Mondio, more so than Schutzen, PSA, it requires an extreme level of understanding from your decoy. Um, Not just a trial decoy is one thing. Training decoy is completely different and far more important for me.
Mhm.
I think for everybody, whether you really even understand that or not, your training decoy is super, super important. And that's getting harder and harder to find, and they're getting older, you know. And you can bring up these youngsters, but generally, you know, after a year or so, they know it all, and then they go and they do their own thing, and you can't blame them. I mean, it is what it is. But I think to do PSA or even Mondio, you don't need that technical skill level that you do with French ring. So here's one other thing I want to add, though, too, in my next pit bulldog. And I've talked to a few different breeders, ADVA breeders, on you know, keep me in mind when you have another litter. I'm not ready right now, anyway. But it's got to have a sound temperament. You know, there's no more screwing around at all with an iffy temperament. And I've done that in the past. I have. Not anymore. I've got grandkids. I'm older. I want to be able to have somebody come to the house and tend to the dogs if I need to travel, or if I need to take them to a boarding kennel. I don't need to worry about them, you know, busting through chain link or whatever. I don't want that type of dog any longer. I don't think I ever wanted it, but sometimes it sort of fell into my lap and dealt with it. Uh, I'll put up with a lot of stuff. In fact, my little blind puppy, I knew there was a chance that he might be monorchid, and he was. And I'm like, that's okay. I forgive that. Good. And then, darn it, you know, he went blind, so I couldn't forgive that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, temperament is probably the most important.
What are some of the things about pit bulls that that you that you find challenging yourself? That you find challenging?
The balance.
Yeah, and you know, Malinois, we know Malinois will just put them in this own other subcategory of those are for the extreme of the extreme of the extreme. But there's a lot of people who like pit bulls, who have pit bulls, who I think don't understand them, you know. But there's a lot of quirky things about pit bulls that, you know, I
Yeah,
think you fully understand, and yeah. What are some of those things?
yeah. So the pit bulls, I think, probably one of the most misleading and detrimental behaviors that we see is they can be super chill with your pack, your home. Maybe you even have some friends that you travel with or at training, and the dog's good with. So your novice handler or your pet handler is going to think my dog's good with other dogs, when in reality they're really not. You know, just because your dog doesn't fight that dog, or not fight, but attack that dog, doesn't mean it won't the next one. So that is a constant challenge with a pit bull dog. Even if it never shows that intent to initiate a fight, it's something that you must always be one step ahead to secure that it doesn't. Because here's the problem: if your pit bull dog does get into a fight, and it doesn't even have to get the worst of it, you know, it can go either way. Doesn't matter what way it goes. Once your dog knows that it's capable of fighting, then you have a problem, because then the dog, 9 times out of 10, they like it, and they like it a lot, and they want to do it again. They find it very, very self-rewarding. So then you're always, always on your toes to stop that from happening. And I even have some friends who have pretty nice, little pit bull dogs, or some of them are even show dogs, and they're good with other dogs. They're still young, in that year range. But for me, after 6 months, depending on the dog, 9 months, I might push it. Then I'm not doing puppy groups anymore. Prior to that, I want to let them have nice, fun, nothing overwhelming, not let them be overwhelming to other young puppies, just a good, pleasant experience. But when I see things either escalating a little bit, um, we're done with the puppy socials, no more of that. And a lot of people feel like the more they continue to socialize their pit bulldog, the better it's going to be for the future. And that's not always the case. And I think with any dog, that's not always the case, because, one bad experience can set you back. But with a pit bulldog, that setback can be devastating.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one of the things. I like the nice small little pit bull dogs. Once upon a time, Capone was pretty good size. Capone's sire was pretty good size. We're talking like 60, maybe 62, 63 pounds. Now I like them like 50 or under. I prefer. Maybe that's because I'm older. It's easier for me to lift them up and go if I need to. So the size and proportion, the structural components are important. Temperament. Um, I don't even care, So when I have inquired to some of my ADBA friends who breed, and if you have you ever been to an ADBA show?
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, it's very different than. Have you ever been to a UKC show?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever been to a UKC Pitbull show?
No, but I've
Okay.
heard about them.
All right. So if you go to a UKC Pitbull show, it looks more like the AKC. Um, Maybe they don't dress quite as fancy, but the dogs are staffed. Judge goes over them, touches them, look at teeth, check testicles, all that stuff. They're gated, they're moved. In ADBA, it's not like that. In ADBA, the dogs all come in. They're tight in the line. I mean, you don't want any floaters out there in the ADBA. They've got to be tight in the line. A lot of the dogs are barking, leaping. The judge never touches the dog. Um, they're not really gated because they're pulling so hard into the line, but they want to see that also. They want to see that the dog is strong, and not just physically but mentally strong towards the other animals. Some of the judges I can really appreciate. With the barking dog doesn't mean anything to me. In fact, the barking dog kind of is not rated as well, in my opinion. They like the dog that just stands his ground, tall and proud, and not backing up, not cowing down, but ready, as opposed to the. Same could be said in sport world too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But ADBA, and every time when I go to the convention, which is in Las Vegas every other year, I always kind of make a point at their judges seminar. Why don't you touch the dogs? I think you really need to touch the dogs. And they said, well, they can't do that because when they're explaining to me, when the dogs are loading up on another dog, if you get in the way, you could get bit. Well, that's a problem then, in my opinion. It shouldn't be like that. Look, I can put even my Malinois, I can put my pit bulldog on a back tie, and I can have my Decoy agitate, and I can step in front of my dog, and I don't worry about getting bit because the dog's really clear on its job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think not just its job, but I think and look, dogs make mistakes. Oh, sorry, but I've been to too many shows now where somebody got hurt, and I don't think it's just bad dogs, but you should never ever. One of the worst things you could do at an ADBA show is have bitch in heat. I'm seeing more and more bitches in heat at the shows, and then we're wondering why these guys are having a difficult time handling their own males. I mean, there's been some problems. So anyway, when I inquire about these types of dogs, or what do you got planned for this guy or this bitch, I'm looking at other things when I see them in the ring. I'm how they absorb the entire environment. Not just the judge looking at them, not just the other dogs in the ring, not just the handler holding the leash, maybe encouraging them, maybe trying to control them, having difficulty controlling them. And you have to look beyond all that. It's just like if you see a raw Malinois, you know, behind a fence, and then they throw something in, and boom, it's got a full mouth, and it's walking around and carrying it, just holding this full mouth. You're like, oh, that's a nice dog.
Mm-hmm.
It's natural. So I kind of I don't really know what I'll be getting into in looking at some of these pups, but there's something I like in either the sire or the dam when they're out in a strange place amongst all of this outside stimuli. And I like the way they're handling themselves. So I don't necessarily care if mom or dad bite a tug or a rag. It doesn't matter. I don't really care what the breeding is. I'm not a big pedigree buff. I'm kind of a believer in if the dogs could read their pedigree and knew how they were supposed to act, we'd be a lot better off. But anything like this, so I look at the individual dog. Now, on the other hand, there are some dogs, and not just in bulldogs, but in Malinois as well, or Rottweilers or what have you, that I don't like. I mean, there's a certain dog that I don't like. And usually if I don't like a dog, it's probably scared me to some extent. I'll be the first to admit I'm a big chicken. Yeah, I handle pit bulldogs in bite sports, but I'm a big chicken. I don't want to get bit by, somebody's dog. So there are some dogs that I'm not really crazy about. And if I know a dog is closely related to that blood, I may not even bother looking at it. I particularly don't like civil pit bulldogs. I don't want a dog that wants to bite somebody for real. And a lot of people, maybe a lot of your viewers, I don't know, that's the only reason they'd even have a pit bulldog. It goes both extremes. So
I hope those aren't my viewers. I hope not, because they got the wrong idea.
Press the following though.
Oh yeah,
they're pretty much dog.
The Pressa thing was this, but as we talked about on the field that one day now, 11 years ago almost, the difference between a Pressa, the pit bulls are so much more complicated. I think because of because just the trigger, and the lack of warning. Whereas, and like you're saying, you don't like anything civil, a dog that will actually bite a person. What we had with Pressas, what we were dealing with was essentially it was dominance, just straight dominance. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, if you were aware, even mildly, you would see all these signals that this dog is going to take you out. There would be several signals along the way that you would realize. The thing about pit bulls that's so tricky is they are, and I've seen, even since I've talked to you that day, and after I talked to you, I had a couple bad encounters with them. One was with a wonderful dog who just made a mistake, but was not able to realize that mistake and whatever. And the other one was with a real bad dog, real dominant, bad, intolerant dog. But since then, I've had a few here who've been where it was like, I have this thing in my mind about how they are, and I need to be on high alert, but at the same time, not project that I'm on high alert, obviously. But I've had some wonderful dogs here now since then. Absolutely wonderful. And but I control things to a great degree. I think the thing is, people get the idea that the dog is social, and then, like you said, it's kind of in them.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. And like a Malinois is into putting something in its mouth. These guys, and the thing is with Pressas had the same thing, and it was like we just knew, like, okay, this guy comes out, everybody. It wasn't. There was never. It was the same. It was the same.
Let me ask you, with your Pressas, if you corrected them, did they ever retaliate? So with the pit bulls, that's one of the things that I like about them. you could do some pretty harsh stuff to them. Thinking back to my beginning days, and they took it.
Yeah.
I've never had a pit bulldog that looked at me like they wanted to come up the line. I had one that looked at me funny one time, and I wasn't even training her. I was correcting her for something she had done in the yard, and she looked at me and did something. I'm like, that's it. You can't do that. You won't do that in this yard. So yeah, um, I don't want to get bit.
That's the whole, and at the end of the day, for what we did is we started breeding more strategically. This was, we stopped breeding, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. And for the last, it was actually Francis Metcalf. When I met him, actually, that was when I met Adrian, too. That was at Felix's place back in 2005, I think. And Francis said something, and I think I already kind of knew it, but didn't know it. But he said, the thing is, when you're dealing with these dogs, you don't want a tough, hard dog. You want a sensitive dog. Because you don't want to go to war over stupid things, So we started breeding our dogs a little bit more twitchy. They ended up being a little bit more twitchy, sweeter, more pit bullish, where they're just, a little bit more wiggly, a little bit more nervous, a little more nervous. But towards the end, we didn't have much to do with that. But in the beginning, it was, it was rough. Strong, intolerant, like ultra dominant Rottweilers,
That's tough.
Yeah.
Talking about how you changed your breeding program to kind of make a different type of dog for you to handle. A lot of people say that Michael Ellis, he's really got a good thing going on because his training program works for the Luc de Soleil dogs. I mean, it's proven time and time and time again. And that's that's a really good point too. Sometimes you get to a point where well, for example, I've got a girlfriend right now that is new to the Malinois breed, and she's got this youngster. He's under a year. But he's a lot of dog. And I worry a little bit because he comes from a Schutzhund German Shepherd background, and she's doing French Ring now, and he's a nice dog, but he'll challenge a little bit if push comes to shove, and Hosna, the female that I campaigned the last few years, I got to tell you, she's the first and only dog I've ever handled that loved to compete. How generally we work them, and we're trying to build up to the competition, and every dog's a little bit different. Maybe we got to put a little more pressure on. Maybe we don't do anything. Maybe we just do fun stuff on open field. Maybe we blast them on open field as much as you can within the rules. But this bitch, she could go with very little training and go out there and do better than she had done it. And she could compete and do better than she was doing in training. I'm not saying she was the best at every trial, but knowing how much preparation she had prior to that particular trial, I'm like, wow, you're really good. You like this, is what I should say. You really, really like to compete. And if you want to do competition, that's what you need as a team player. You don't want a dog that's too hard. And we've got plenty of dogs out there that are the best to watch. They're making the stands hoot and holler because they're fabulously entertaining, but they're not making points. They're not even passing, let alone making points. And and some people like Philippe Bellini, he was okay with that. Because his dog was so hard. He just let it go out there and torture the decoys and felt good about that because everybody's like, I want to breed your dog. But a lot of the people out there that are competing right now, they want to pass. And some of them don't want to just pass, they want to win. But here's another thing too, and you're talking about the training. If you have too much electric going, and look, I think all of us have, most of us that are competing, we use electric, to some degree, but if you become too dependent on it, same could be said about your leash and collar too, though. If you can only control the dog with a leash on, then it's not really you controlling the dog, it's the leash controlling the dog or the electric controlling the dog. So it's nice when you have a dog that's biddable enough to, and I'm not a believer in the dogs want to please us. They want to please themselves, and that's okay. If you do this, and you can do that.
Yeah. But some dogs are just, I know my dog Lot, the Rodin, he was just compliant. He was a team player. He was always gunning like, he would always be gunning like 99 in training, 99% in training, always. Like everything was perfect. And we get into trial and everything would be perfect and he'd have one big blowout, but it was never because of like, he'd lose his mind or anything like that. But at one point, Dave Croyer was competing for Ring 3, and I think it was Ring 3, and I had retired him by then. So it was a year, and this is a real big learning thing for me too, actually. It was a year where I didn't do anything with him. When I say anything, I literally mean not a single down. No fetch, no whistle, no OPA, no whatever, nothing. All it was I think at that time he was still in the kennel. He was 7 or 8. His problem was he didn't breathe when he was biting. So when he come off the bite, he would be gasping for air. So we could never, he was always, he was always on the verge of death. So anyway, so I'm like, oh, I'll retire him. So then Dave comes in September. I was because we had the young dog, Danger. We were putting him. So Dave was nervous about competing, and I said, "Hey, man," and we're really good buddies, And I said, "Hey, what if I compete a lot? Will that help you?" And he's like, "Yeah, because we're like, we're not competing against each other. We're two guys competing together."
Right.
So I brought him out, and I did a basket, and his basket was always like 3 7-meter face attacks. Every time. And I was like, you know what? I kind of like it. Yeah, and it's like for what I have to do to him, if I have to do it, I have to do to tighten it up. He's not going to bite. Right? So it's like this, I don't care. And there was other strategic value too because he was up and he was like collarbone, so he could spook people, and then there's other things. Anyway, so put him in this trial. Nothing. For 2 weeks shy of a year, the 2 weeks a year before, he had competed Ring 3 and did like 3. I barely passed. I don't know. Well, he did something. He lost the basket, I think, and I don't know. I think he guarded the cone instead of the basket.
Okay.
Because he did like a 6-meter face attack, and then when the guy stopped, he went to the cone instead of going. All these things that nobody thinks about until you've been in there, and you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, 2 weeks shy of a year, he put him in the trial. He didn't lose a 1/10 of a point in obedience. A 1/10. Because no sits and no downs and no anything. And he just knew, like, this is my job. And all of the training was so ring heavy. Whereas now I'm doing things that are more, I'm doing positions on a weird things, and I'm retrieving weird things and trying to get the dog that I have now to do more. It's more like what I really want to do is that Campagna stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like the most.
Yeah, but where are you going to find it?
I'm not.
I know. Talk to Stephanie O'Brien. Maybe she'll do it at the ranch. She's talking about it also.
Well, I have a friend here, Maureen, who has a place where we could do it, actually.
Okay.
Full on. But it's the thing is I have to train my, there's a lot going into it. I was training, like you said something earlier, you've had Adrian for as long as I've known you, and Adrian is a amazing training decoy. Yes. He's wonderful. But on top of that, he's like the sweetest, kindest, most thoughtful. He's just a peach of a peach. And it's like, if I had him, I would never let him go. I would.
Exactly.
So I had this guy, Ryan, who came out probably a couple months ago and said, hey, and the guy came over to train, and he's working at Learburg. and um, he came out, and I put him in the suit, and I had never put my dog's had some problems. He had pano real bad, and then he had like some low grade pneumonia, and then he just kind of had a rough go of it there. So I had to take it really, really easy on him. Couldn't do too many jumps. Didn't go too crazy with biting. But the dog that I have, he's from. Do you remember all the Terry Davis stuff?
Yes.
You remember LaRue?
Okay.
Okay, so this is a line bred LaRue.
Aha.
So he's wonderful, very interesting and wonderful. But anyway, I super strong. Not my kind of dog at all. But I used to do what you did too. I had 9 dogs before I had Lot in the course of like 6 years. So, but now I went, all right, I know the dog has the goods. He's got all the goods. That's not the issue. It's living with him that's a problem. Because he's got kind of true aggression, but he's a wonderful dog though. Like in the case, I could give him to you. I could send him to you in a crate right now. You could take him out, and you'd go, wow, what an idiot loudmouth. He barks at everything, but what a sweet, sweet, nice dog.
Okay.
Anyway, so this guy comes out, we start training, and I'm like, holy cow, I don't have to tell him anything. In fact, he's giving me feedback that's extremely valuable. Like, oh, on the left, he's solid on the left. On the right, I noticed him traveling up a little bit, and it seems uncharacteristic. So now, after that and another thing, and just he's got a tweak in his neck. His neck is tweaked, right? So now chiropractic and stuff like that, but without just that first bit of insight.
Right.
Yep. So, and now he's moving. So I'm in the same boat that I've been it's just when you have a valuable, in order to do ring, even Mondio ring too. I mean, here's the thing, you can do Mondio ring, you can train Mondio ring for the exercises, or you can train it like ring. And if you train it like ring, your dog will always be prepared, But in order to do that, you need a decoy, who has feel and timing and knows pressure and, all these things, knows how to, because even if you have the strongest Malinois, you still have to build them up a little bit. You have to put them through experiences the right way.
Yep.
And it's so hard to find those things, and you've had, like I said, you've had Adrian this whole time. God bless him.
Yes, I've been blessed for sure.
Was he with Cassie? Was he working Cassie most of the time?
Kathy was coming down and working with him as often as she could, 2, sometimes 3 times a month. And there were times when she would get down here and I would handle Hosna. She just wasn't feeling good after the drive. And so that's kind of how I originally got to know the dog. And I liked her. She was young then. She reminded me a little bit of Changa. She was a team player. And so Kathy was working pretty closely with Adrian as best she could. And then when she got sick, well, they did a breeding also. They bred Hosna to Tosco. So they had that. And then Kathy whelped that litter. I think they're 3 years old now. Kathy whelped that litter, but they went to Laura and Adrian before they were ready to go home. So like maybe 5, 6 weeks. So they raised the pups for a few weeks and then went from there. But yeah, I was going to ask you, Mark, do any of your dogs live in the house, or are they all kennel?
No, well, it kind of goes back and forth. Right now, what we've got going on is Danger, our old dog, would normally live in the house, but he's very difficult in the house. And he tore both his ACLs. So we have stairs and slippery floor and stuff. So right now, he's back in the kennel until he's back up to snuff, because with this other ACL tear. The Dutch Shepherd puppy, he comes in the house at night and goes out in the kennel during the day. Sometimes he's in during the day, but I will say, from a guy who has the advantage of a kennel, and our situation it's pretty awesome, because I can be completely deprived of stuff through a certain setup, or I can give them all the freedom in the world in a certain setup, right? So I will say this, if I'm looking at a competition dog and I want to compete and I need, you got to train every day.
Hmm.
You have to. And you need to have all the ducks need to be in a row, or at least as much as you can be. I need to be in the right mood. I got to have all my gear set. My dog needs to be in the right mood. So if I get him up off the couch, uh, and I say, "Hey man, come on, let's or he's just been running around outside for 30 minutes playing with another dog, and I go, "Hey, let's jump."
Yeah.
So I just the kennel life, I like raising a dog in the kennel, but I don't like keeping them in the kennel when they get older. Lot finished his last 5 years in the house. The other one was in the house. Buff, the poodle's been in the house the whole time. Now the crow's in the house, for sure.
Crows. Oh
Yeah,
my God. How
yeah,
exciting is that? What's the plan with the crow? Just for fun?
yeah. Just train, just do stuff. I got to tell you, like, as an animal person, see, you would be very much probably. I mean, there's things that I had to learn, and I think I was actually thinking about it today, how I'm just doing things with her now, where when I first got her, it was like probably, and I keep making this analogy, and those people who watch this who have talked to me are like, God damn it, Mark's talking about the crow again. But I think it is what a parent feels the first time, because I've had dogs integrated into my life.
Hmm.
We've had puppies as kids, and then seeing puppies being born, and my brothers were into dogs, and then I got a puppy, and you just and I was naive back then. I'm like, oh, I got a puppy, let's figure it out, whatever. And so when I got this thing, I was like, panicking because it all happened really quick. It was something I wanted, but timing wise, it just was going to be a long time, and didn't know how to hold it, didn't know how to feed it, didn't know what to feed it, didn't. So the whole thing kind of now everything has fallen into place just beautifully. It's amazing. But here's the thing: having your horse experience, because the thing is, a crow is a scavenger; it's not a hunter. They hunt insects, right? She hunts, like she'll hunt insect things that are moving on the ground. She'll, you know, fly off my hand and go hunt these things. But it's more like a horse because it's a prey. It's like prey
Hmm.
animal, whereas a dog's a predator. So, obviously no corrections.
Right.
All I've got is deprivation.
Uh-huh.
She's insanely demanding,
Oh,
so I can't speak around her. Like like she's covered up. If you cover her up, you're okay. If you cover her up, she'll be quiet. But if she's not covered up and I walk in there and I say anything, she starts screaming like crazy. If I hold her and someone else comes near me, she tries to go after him.
oh. So you're the only one she's into.
Yeah, it's real strong. It's very, very, but I'm telling you, Larry, it's like stuff that would make you freak out. Like, if she's hungry, I work recalls because it's just a great time to do it and it works really, really well.
And what are you
Yeah.
using for food?
Raw meat,
Okay.
yep, raw, whatever I can find, or, some dog treats sometimes, depending. Most people who have them feed them dog food.
Okay.
So I'm giving her raw meat, but I can get the recalls and stuff going. But then once she eats enough, then what happens is I keep things I use my dog vest, my ring vest, and right here in this pocket I have like a plastic gas card, a whistle, um, a washer, $1, and she just basically reaches in there and grabs stuff, and then I
Okay.
throw it, and she flies off my arm and grabs it, and then pecks around for like 2 minutes, and then she'll grab that thing, bring it back, and try to shove it back in my pocket.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I
That,
didn't I didn't teach her any of these things.
yeah. It's just a
They
crow thing.
it's just a crow thing. That's why when you go to the zoo now and you see if they have a crow show and the crow goes and grabs the $1 and puts it in the guy's pocket, it's nothing special. They just do it. Okay. So, but yeah, it's just fun. But I do find that you know, having the dog in the house, when I did have the dog in the house, and when I do have the dog in the house, I just don't get, I get a little, the integrity goes, in the work goes down a little bit, a little bit.
I know. I know, but I've gotten really soft in my old age. The only one I have that stays outside full time is, and he's in like isolation, is Leo, the little yag, just because he wants to.
You have one of those? I didn't know
Yeah.
you. Oh,
Well,
Christ.
he belonged to somebody in our club, and he's 10. He's an older guy. He's got a brevet. I didn't do it. I was trying to get him ready for his one, but then
I'm with you. I'm
oh,
just listening.
um, Leo he's been booted around a little bit. He's had a few different owners, and I was using him for my business for a while, and now he'll just retire here. He'll die here. I just love him to pieces. He's a neat little dog. I would never ever own one, as a pet or a hunter or anything like that, because he's worse than a Malinois. I mean,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Some people might not know what you're talking about here. You called it a yag, right?
yes,
Which is a yag or
yeah,
yag
it's
terrier,
terrier. Yeah, yeah.
which is a more rare than a Patterdale, you could say. But
I
it's
don't,
a
I don't know how rare they are.
well, California. They're in California, but they're not out. They're not out here. They're not. I
Oh,
knew.
okay. Okay.
I saw. Oh my gosh, can I tell this story? I suppose I can tell this story. I had an American Bulldog first. Really nice one. Big boy, like 110 pounds, right? Super nice. And we did bite work and everything. Really nice dog. Anyway, I was exploring different options and I was like trying to figure out a place to set up shop. I was probably 22 or 23. I met this guy near here who had all these kennels, who used to breed pointers, didn't have anything going on. So I went out there and I said, well, I had a plan at the time to breed. My fantasy plan was, this is so silly, I'll tell you this, but to breed Decker Giant Rat Terriers. I really like those dogs. Have you seen them?
Mhm.
Okay, so it's like,
Terrier is, but
okay, these Deckers are like, the males are 45 to 55 pounds.
oh, okay.
Yeah, super substantial and very nice, much calmer than the average terrier. More biddable, not
Yeah,
quite biddable, but more biddable. You know what I
oh,
mean?
yeah.
Anyway, so I went and saw this guy, and his two nephews dropped out of school to guide these. He has 5,000 acres over here to guide these hunting trips. This is a long time ago. And these two boys said, "Hey, you should stick your bulldog on that coon." And I said, "For what?" And I'm like, and look at me, dude. I was like, look, do I look like that kind of guy? And I'm like, so I said, and he said, for what? And he goes, oh, your dog will kill that coon. And I said, yeah, he probably will, but he's going to lose his eyeballs and his lips and his ears in the process. I don't want to do that. And they went back, and they brought out this little dog, one of those, who was probably 8 pounds. And it looked like, remember 30 years ago, that little dog that you wind up and it kind of just shakes in place? It looked like that. Everything was rigid, and they
Yeah.
put it on that thing, and it was a very short story. I couldn't believe it, but I was like, "What is that? That thing? It looked like it behaved like a demon." You know?
Yes, yes, they're
Yeah,
very focused.
yeah. Crazy, crazy, crazy dogs, and just know you don't out here. You see Jack Russells quite a bit, and people work them, and you see that's about it. And you see all the other terrier varieties, but you never you very even the hunting guys, you don't see those at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy fun dog, but crazy dog. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, this little guy he's a lot of fun too, and he's pretty honest. If you take him out and you want to throw the ball, or you want to play frisbee, or whatever you want to engage him in, could be other dogs around. He's focused. He's good. Um, but to live with him, he has it out for my bully. Uh, and the thing is, Leo doesn't have a lot of teeth left. He has enough to eat, but he's lost some canines and broken some. And he got past my husband. It's been about a year now, a little over a year. Got past my husband and blindsided Junior, who was sunbathing in the driveway. Junior, one of the things that I like about bullies, or at least I thought I did, is is they don't have that aggression. And if they do get into a fight with another dog, they have no endurance, so it doesn't last long, But it did. And Leo, that's where I was going with this. Is they're such game little guys, and he was losing. I mean, pound for pound, he's losing. He's 20 pounds, and Junior, I guess, has got to be 40, 45. He's little, but he's super stout. But he wouldn't stop, and he wouldn't stop, and he wouldn't stop. I mean, to the point where Leo almost lost his leg. He's got it, but it was touch and go there for a while. And still to this day, if he has opportunity, he's on him. And the funny thing about it, like the big schnauzer can walk past him on the patio because the schnauzer doesn't give him the time of day, but Junior will look back at him. He'll make that eye contact with him, and that's all it takes. But I was forewarned about him when he was given to me, and he was already 6 years old then. Handle him like you would a game pit bulldog. Do not trust him even with other females, because he'll act okay and nice and fun and playful, and then it changes like that. So I took that to heart, and then experienced this a year ago, and so now I'm like extra careful. But Tim Welch has one right now. He's got a bitch, and he's training it. It looks pretty good in the work, but I haven't seen one like Leo. In fact, another gal out in New Mexico, she's supposedly they're hunting line, but they're also show line. They do really good in the UKC ring. But I have not handled them, but I've played with her dogs, from puppies to the older ones, just on a tug kind of thing. And they're nothing like Leo. Leo is like one of the best Malinois puppies you could find. That's how Leo is.
Mm-hmm.
Like out of the gate, just natural. There's no building or any of that. The only thing Leo's got is, when I first got him, I used to tell my grandson, this little guy's not afraid of anything. He is so tough and so eager and so strong. But I did find something that he was not good with, and that's gunfire. He did get through his brevet. But then thinking back on it, they had to do a little bit of work to get him through that. I had forgotten about that, and I was getting him ready for his one. And where we train, we don't get to use the gun all the time. So it was like open field the day before, and I'm like, oh, we got a problem here. So it's all right. We don't have to do a one. We probably wouldn't have passed anyway, but it would have been fun.
Wow. Kathy, do you know Kathy Thomas from Sacramento, up near Sacramento?
Yeah. Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah, so she
and the Patterdales.
Yes, so she had I think it might have been her first Patterdale. Her name was Tara.
Uh-huh.
She's probably 8 or 9 now. She came and stayed with me for 3 months for training.
Kathy or Tara?
Tara.
Oh, okay.
She left her here. And Kathy said, just do your stuff and give her bites and see what's going on and do whatever you can. She knew, she just thought it would be fun.
Yeah.
But we were doing obedience and other things, and whatever. So 3 months. I gave her bites on the suit. She was outing and guarding, biting legs, and she's like 12. Maybe I'm bad judge of character. She was very small, 12, 15 pounds maybe, strong. Anyway, down the road here, literally 1 mile down the road, and we're out in the country kind of, it said Terrier Fun Day, something.
Ooh.
So I go down there and they're having these go to ground and barn hunt and blah, blah, blah. So I saw it and I said, what is this? And I said, well, hey, I have a friend who has a dog here, Patterdale. Maybe it'd be fun to just throw her in. Would it be okay? And they said, yeah, that'd probably be fine. So I called Kathy and I said, Kathy, would you mind if I put her in? And she said, no, of course not. Go ahead. Because she had already done this stuff with her.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a Jack Russell Terrier show, right? They call it Terrier Fun Day, but all these people do this barn. Here there's a lot of farms, and there's a lot of rats and mice and raccoons, and a lot of people use dogs. If it's raccoons, they shoot them out of the rafters, and the dogs grab them. If it's mice, just dogs. So she smoked everybody in this fun day. Right? Literally just smoked them. And basically they called us, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks later and said, in a couple of weeks, we're having our national specialty and we wanted to invite you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, let me ask Kathy. So I asked Kathy. She said, yeah. Well, the issue was, I think the last thing I did the first day was barn hunt, I think. And so I did like go to ground, hurdle race, and then barn hunt. And when I went back the second time, the first thing I did was barn hunt, and then they had to do the go to ground. She didn't go in the go to ground at all. She jumped all the hay bales and grabbed. This is my point. Grabbed this cage that was made up of wood and dowels with
Uh-oh.
a live rat in it, right? And so and my friend Greg Weldon is there, who you would, I'm sure he's not watching this now, but he'll be watching this right away. He has a game bred pit bull that he went to one of those shows you're talking about just recently. And he also has a Welsh Terrier. Anyway, super great guy, one of my dear friends. So the dog is biting this cage, and I step in there and I'm like, oh, I got this, don't worry. Tara, out. And I was like, what? Tara, out, you know.
Tara.
Yeah. And I was like, I felt like one of those guys. You know what I mean? And so, and then at some point, Greg comes in with this, you know what I mean? The dog is in another world. And
Yeah.
Greg comes in with this stick that's like, I mean, it's like this tiny little stick, like he's going to use it as a breaker bar.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what are you going to do with that? But I went and I got home and I called Kathy and I'm like, well, she's been here for like 11 weeks and I have no out whatsoever.
But you do. Just
Yeah.
not off of your wrap.
Yeah, I was like, I just couldn't believe the total disregard. The total disregard.
You know, I had well, I didn't have a Patterdale, but I got one for my husband a few years back. He decided he wanted to do these go to grounds and barn hunts and all that stuff. And I got her from a good breeder, actually a pit bull breeder, Gary. But I told Gary, I said, don't send us your best dog. You know, don't send a strong hunting dog because my husband's probably never going to do anything. He just likes to talk. And so he sent us a pup, cute as can be. Smooch was her name. And I hate to even admit this, but Denny would take her in the neighborhood and they'd go looking for cats. And so she really liked, you know, now we got a dog park around the corner, but it wasn't there at the time. So she liked to get out and scent down the cats. In fact, Adrian and Denny many a time went running down the street trying to find her because the little bitch kept getting out. She was finding ways out to go look for cats. The funny thing about it, Mark, is when she'd find it, she'd get it into the corner, and if it hissed at her or striked, she'd jump back. She wouldn't actually bite it. Remember, I told him, don't send me your best one, and she was definitely not his best one. Bottom line was she kept escaping, and I don't like a dog that wants to get out of the yard all the time. I just don't. I mean, even Leo, who could, any of these dogs could easily go over my back fence, which is a little taller than me, maybe 5.5, 6 feet tall. But, you know, the palisade, and they all do that. They don't go anywhere. They like it here. And I sent her back to Gary. I said, Gary, she's a really sweet little gal, but I'm afraid I live fairly close to a busy street, and I'm just concerned she's going to get out. Nobody's going to be here, and we're going to lose her, or she's going to get hit. He says, no problem. Send her back. Within a week, she got away from him and did get hit. So it was, you know, it was just, yeah. So I was kind of bummed about that, but that's what I was afraid of. That's exactly what I was afraid of. But, you know, once they get their mind set on something, and hers wasn't necessarily on killing, but she liked the hunt. The hunt was much better than the kill. Chase is better than the kill. So I lost her after that. She just wouldn't stay.
Oh, that's a drag.
You know, and when we had, I had taken Smooch and Leo's owner, we had gone to a go-to-ground, and he had never done one before, but Leo had been he'd done real hunting. In fact, he's only got one ear because he lost the ear in a hunt. And all of the different little this little Scottish Terrier and the Toy Fox Terrier and all these other breeds that are there, like what you saw. These people were so impressed with Leo, they were like talking about breeding him, like crossbreeding him, just because his hunt drive was phenomenal. It really was. And he won like the big thing that particular day. And so like the next thing he has to do, which I've thought about trying to do it now that he's a little older, but again, like you were saying with Tara, and she didn't want it out, is so now the next step is they have to go in and they have harder turns and they have false indications, but then you have to recall them out. And oh, I don't know about that.
That's, whoever wrote that test is dealing with some of these, it's yeah. There's the. It just seems like there's the real people and there's the people that actually use these guys to hunt, and they know they're never gonna recall their dog. There's no way it's gonna happen, and they're never gonna need to. And it's just like herding. We have the right down the road here. I missed it last weekend. It's allergy season for me, so if I go outside, it's like super bad. But we had the herding dog nationals here.
Oh wow.
But it's not like what you see, they basically send the dog, I don't know, 1,000 meters, 2,000 meters. You can't even see the sheep, and the handler can never move.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's like all the people who come are from Montana, Wyoming, Canada, Texas, Oklahoma. All these border collies are scraggly, scrawny, tall and long, are short and weird looking. You know how border collies can be, real, like they're tweaked out.
Right.
And it's just a feat because they can, a lot of them use whistles, but there's no stick.
Okay.
And there's no away to me and come to me and all this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So when I went to it the first time, it was very easy to distinguish who does this for a job and who does this for fun with their, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, I got a whatever Toy Fox Terrier, and I want to go do barn hunt, or I have, or something like that, and then you go up against a Patterdale or
yeah.
God forbid, one of those things. I heard a story actually about those Yog Terriers a long time ago about a guy in California who was doing upland bird trials. And he competed 4 years in a row, and he won 4 years in a row. And after 4 years, this is like I heard this story in probably 2000 or 2001. And they said, after 4 years, they said, you and your breed are not welcome at our events anymore.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like taking a pit bull to a ring trial.
Well, you'd think so. You're kind of, maybe.
Or a bulldog in general.
Yeah.
Hey, so I like that in a person. Not afraid to step out of the norm. Try something a little bit.
It's challenging. Yeah. It's challenging. So, all right. So we're kind of running out of time here. I got to ask you a couple fun questions. So, do you have a favorite dog movie? Is there a dog movie that just, or animal movie that just, really in any capacity?
Well, I liked Pets, that I took my grandson to see that. There are some out now, though. There's some dog movies out now that I watched. Oh, the one about the Malinois.
I never saw it. The Max movie, isn't that terrible?
Oh no, there's the other one too, where all the different lives of
Oh, I didn't see that either. And somebody told me where it's like the dog is reincarnated over and over and over again or something like that.
And the one part that really makes you think is when it turns into the police dog, and he talks about how his life is so different and his owner is so serious, because police dog, he's guarding his life, and sometimes I think that even us sport handlers would take it a little too serious sometimes, and We need to remember it's got to be fun. We got to, if we're not having fun, the dog's certainly not having fun. So we need to lighten up a little bit. That's a good movie. I can't remember the name, darn it.
It's everybody knows what you're talking about though. I didn't see, I should see it. I didn't see it because I was like, I don't want to see that. But you made a really good point though. Just lightening up. And the thing is, I would say, um, I was about to ask you what advice you would give people with their pit bulls, but I'll give some advice to young people who encounter some type of discouragement in training, or dog has a little hiccup or develops a little something. Lighten up. Most likely everything's going to be okay. Because like you said with your dog, I know with Lot, my dog, that turned out to be the best for me. He worked out really, really great for Ring and to live with for my lifestyle at the end. And it was tough in the beginning, but it worked out really nice. But I'm certain at least 5 times I was going to sell him, where I was like, yeah, you ain't going to do it. You ain't going to cut it. This ain't going to happen. But, just letting the dog mature and letting them develop, and, kind of being patient. And then also like being patient when your dog if your dog's doing the defense and he doesn't bite on the defense, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean he's never going to bite again. But a lot of times these things, for people come with experience.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and there's no perfect dog.
Never.
Sometimes people talk about, oh gosh, it must be really hard training an alternate breed. Oh, there are its challenges, as you know. But you know what? Even with the high-end Malinois, there's challenges there too. On both sides. So there's always going to be something to have to overcome. Um, One thing that I like is the new way of training. I love the free shaping stuff, and there's so much you can do. I mean, with these tiny little babies, and I'm just learning myself. I can't wait to get another puppy. I love puppies. Um, but to just don't be afraid to get in there and do things. I like to, probably you too, like to let them work for their food. There's a lot you can do during that time, and they don't even realize that they're learning
Mm-hmm.
something, going through the motions. So um, and then with the people, as the dog gets a little bit older, is to, if they do need to reach out for help, to go to somebody that embraces the breed, because there are trainers that they'll take your money, they'll take your dog or let you come in, but they're not on your dog's side. You really want somebody who really wants you to have success.
How does one find one of these people in your opinion? What are some
I think
things?
I think references. Yeah, and I'm going to say, because I'll always take a bulldog if somebody's in need of help, and I don't do a lot of pet dog training anymore, but I have a few, just because my time is limited. But I have a few clients here or there. But usually, if somebody calls with a pit bulldog, I'm happy to look at it. At least I will look at it, meet them, talk to them, and if I'm not able to help them, if the times just don't work out, I'll refer them to somebody else. More often than not, it's Adrian, but there are other trainers as well too. And uh, just ask around. You can get on the internet and ask around. Oh, what I was going to say is, I have met some people, and I've worked with them that I thought I've been wrong a time or two, if you can believe that. I know it seems hard to believe, but I've called it wrong a few times, where maybe an older couple, retired couple, their son or their grandson couldn't keep the pit bull dog, so they're keeping it for them, and the dog's a lot of dog, and they don't want to use anything that would actually maybe help control the dog, like a choke collar or a prong collar, God forbid, an electric collar. And so, you do as much food stuff as you can, but still, when they're going out in the neighborhood, walking the dog, and at that point, I'm suggesting don't even take it out of the yard. just play ball with it in the backyard if you need to, because walking the streets are dangerous. In this particular neighborhood, there's a lot of people with dogs. Come to find out, these same people, they end up getting a second dog, which I suggested against that. I said, you're going to need to be careful because this dog's pretty hot. And you know what? They still have the two dogs and everything's okay. So sometimes maybe I scare people a little bit with my truths, my experiences. Be careful with this, be careful with that. Because when I was younger, Mark, when I was raising my kids with my first few pit bulldogs, I did everything you shouldn't do as a parent with a child and a dog, any dog, let alone a pit bulldog. But I was lucky, and I had pretty good dogs at that time. But now I'm overly aware and sensitive about all of the pit bull attacks.
Yeah.
And even this little bully who I think he would melt as opposed to biting a child. I really feel that way. It still scares me because I know what he did in self-defense of that little dog over there in the lockdown. And if he were to do that to a person, it would be horrible. I mean, absolutely horrible. So when I see my grandbaby just kissing on him and loving him and hugging him, and I post up pictures and videos, believe me, I'm still always thinking, I've got to be careful with this. I've got to be careful with this. So anyway, I've called it wrong a time or two, and the people didn't have an accident, and hopefully, they continue not to, because accidents, and I've had them as well, can really shake you. They can shake your nerve and your confidence. Um, and let me tell you one other quick story before we go, because I know it's getting late. So I got Capone's only daughter. So he had one litter in his life, and there's one male and one female. And the male got the first leg of his ring one, is here locally with a friend of mine, Hi Trong, who's an incredible dog owner. He treats his dog like his kid. He really goes above and beyond. And then there was a daughter, a sister to Wes, and the sister was Nala. I ended up just kind of out of the blue. She kind of got tossed around a little bit. I got her like at 3.5 years of age, and real good looking little dog, undershot, but nice, tight body, very square, 45 pounds maybe, and drive like Malinois drive. And I got really excited about her. Cassie was gone at this point. I thought, this dog's going to be better than Cassie. She was getting it. She was strong. She was sharp. She was quick. But what I would get at home, I would never get outside. And I know, there's approximations on, when you've got to slowly build up to it. But Mark, I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it. In fact, once I got out of her comfort zone of here in the house or the yard, she was hunting, almost like one of these little terriers. Worked her a little bit in the bite work, and she liked to bite, and she looked the picture of stamina and health and endurance, but she was wound so tight, and she had a very short muzzle, and she was undershot. She pooped out super, super quick, so she didn't have much, and she just lost it in the first few bites. Anyway, long story short, I ended up sending her back to the fellow that sent her to me, and ground transportation. That's how she came to me. That's how I sent her back. Well, I didn't even think about it. When I transported her here, I had her in an aluminum crate. The fellow that came to pick her up put her in a wire crate.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think about it. And sure enough, during one of their stops, he was walking one of the other dogs. She got out of that wire cage, and that was just kind of her thing. She wanted to get it on.
Mm-hmm.
Although cool with her dad, at the time he was still alive, and she could make friends, and she liked to work and liked to go and liked to do things, but she was constantly on the hunt to get after something. And that one almost broke me, because I tried everything I know as a dog trainer, everything positive, everything neutral, everything, the opposite side, and any success I had was short lived. And maybe it was because she was older. I don't know. But sometimes you can't always reach them either. I do have warnings of people who are wanting to adopt the older dogs, and I love the old dogs. I love the puppies and I love the old dogs. But you really got to be careful because you don't, what you see at the shelter or at the rescue, it could be very different, once you get it home and get it settled in. So.
Yeah, and you think about usually it seems like 4 to 8 weeks, anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks until you really know what you have when you bring a dog home like that.
Mm-hmm, that's right. Once you settle in, so.
It's kind of a shell, and I know if I ever get it, we just get all those. This morning was a behavioral psychologist telling me about his Catalu. What did he call it?
Catahoula?
No, actually, no. But he called it a southern cur or something.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, Mark. It's a mutt, whatever. But it bit the HVAC guy, and this is the fourth person he's bit, and it was something. But it ends up it's a pit bull mix, something, and it's just, the thing is you said you've made some things you've called some things incorrectly, but the deal is this. This is what I think. Like, if the idea is there for me that this could happen, we all need to be fully aware that it could happen. If it never happens, God bless them.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, but if you're not, it's like this. I had this Bouvier with me for a little while that I really, really liked. That's why I got the Dutch Shepherd.
Okay.
I liked the Bouvier so much. I knew he wasn't himself enough, and he wasn't right for me, and I couldn't keep him here, and I didn't want to keep him in the kennel. So I ended up giving him to a friend of mine who used to partake in fighting pit bulls. Long time ago, 30 years ago probably. But he's a real good guy, and he's got a really great job and a wife and kids, and everything's great, but he knows how to handle tough dogs. And I had this dog for 6 months, and I used to groom him and stuff, and everything was fine, but I always said, when I would groom him, I go, hey man, don't bite me in the face, because I know you're an asshole. Like, I know at the end of the day you seem sweet and friendly and everything, but you are an asshole. I know it. And the thing is, he came here a few times for training. The kid got a divorce and then asked me if I'd take him and help until we could find him a place. So we found him. So I just kind of pseudo-actively tried to find him a place, and this was the best place. So the guy had him, and day 2, he bit the neighbor. Day 7 or 8, he growled at the kid while he was laying in the bed. Why would he growl at my kid? I said, I don't know. Maybe he's not feeling well, but why is he on the bed? He's intact. He's 3 years old. What are you doing? You just got him. Well, he's just so good. And I'm like, I told you, blah, 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 blah. But what ended up happening is the dog ended up with super bad prostate issue, which was why he growled at the kids. So, and you probably know too, like, even if you say, well, all right, you've got these 2 dogs, they look like this, they have this type of character, odds are they could have a rift, and if they have a rift between them, then there could be a problem. And people go, oh, okay, well, we'll just control the environment to the hilt then. They don't think about things like injuries or illness.
That's right. Yeah, you're right.
Nobody thinks about that. And it happens all the time where when somebody says, well, the dog just started growling at the kids, I always ask, the first thing I said, was he limping before or after? Oh, yeah, the next day he was limping.
Well, I'll tell you, if you listen to tales of old, the pit bull dog was the nanny dog, which I don't know if I really buy that. My dogs were great with my kids growing up, but I think I just got lucky. But the pit bull dog, or the fighting breeds, were supposed to be so tough and have such a high threshold that even if they were in pain, they weren't going to do something adverse to their handler or their people. But you know what? Those are nice stories, but they're still animals. They're animals. And pit bulls today are very different than they were, a couple hundred years ago. So,
Everything is different today.
indeed,
You
indeed.
know, where I grew up, when I have this farm dog kind of thing that I like, which is where I grew up, there was everybody had a farm. We were out in the country. A lot of people had farms and a lot of people had farm dogs. And the farm dogs were either awesome or they were dead. So they either took them out in the field and let them go, or they took them out in the field and shot them.
Hmm.
And it all happened very naturally, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So you just,
I,
yeah,
I can.
yeah, now people, they think, and believe me, it's like I tell people, I said, look, you got to pretend you don't care. You care, I care, we all care. I hate suffering more than anything. Who likes, nobody likes correcting a dog. If anybody actually likes correcting a dog, they shouldn't be correcting a dog. You know, it's one of those things. But um, when I tell people, you got to be like the old farmer, because this is just, I hate to say it, but it
You're right.
works.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, but it is a different world now where there's all kinds of weird stuff going on. But the beauty and what and is you came from that school of yank and crank, like you called it, which is the term what we call it, and I did too. And now now you're messing with free shaping, which is the polar opposite of the spectrum. And that the reason that's beautiful is two things. A, I mean, it's well, two reasons. A, you're not stuck. Yeah, and B, your mind is open. And free shaping isn't it like it's the most patience challenging way of training a dog, but the rewards are astronomical.
They sure are. Yeah. I don't know if you know, but I've got chickens now too, and I attempted to do some chicken training with my first batch, but half of them had to go because they were roosters anyway. But yeah, I I I know very little. I don't know a thing. I'm always learning something new, and there's so much out there. And like I said, I love the way that dog training has taken a big, probably, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm thinking like the last 10, 12 years, it's really um, made some great changes. So um, yeah, I need to get up to snuff. I haven't been out there to some of these seminars and stuff for a while. So and now that I don't have a dog, I think it's the best time for me to go. So
Yes,
then I'll
yes.
be ready to start implementing, yeah, as soon as possible.
Yeah, or you could just get a crow.
Yeah, or another chicken.
A chicken, you could.
I don't know about that crow. That's got to be a little bit harder. I thought you were going to say, the thing about the crow is just like a small dog, they fill up so fast and then they're not motivated. But you don't even have that. Now you got to go get some shiny stuff.
That is, and but it is like a small dog where yes, they do fill ups, but then yeah, it's weird. And I don't like you just said, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm barely being able to recognize the behavior. All I can do is try to see the patterns
Yeah,
throughout the day, know when I can capitalize, know what she's doing. But I know like it's so hit and miss, and there's no correction whatsoever.
right, right.
There's nothing like the only thing I can do is so like when I go in is I have to put these things in her legs, and there's a lot of people who just leave them in. So it's like these leashes, jesses they call them, like a hawk has, right? So I put them in and take them out, and put them in and take them out, and gave her food and stuff, and clicked. I use a clicker with her when I start doing new things, and but there's no correction. There's sometimes where I'm like, come here, you little shyster, I want to wring your neck, right? But what happens is if I go in there, she's usually really squirrely, so she moves to the side. And when she moves to the side, I move to the other side away from her. And I just sit there. And she screams at me and puts her wings out like the dragon in Game of Thrones. Like she's really scary looking. And then she comes over, and even if it takes me 45 seconds, she'll sit there. And I just thought, you know what? I'm not going to chase you.
Yeah,
not in a hurry. I'm just going
Well,
to
that's
move over
awesome.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just trying to, figure out. But the food thing, yeah, it's like, okay, well, all right, she's full. Now what are we going to do? Well, she still wants to do stuff, but now my flow is off because imagine if you're working a dog who's not accepting your reward.
Right. Right. You know what I'm thinking for her? And how do you pronounce her name, by the way?
Verona.
Verona. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, have you tried any tug work with her?
She tugs like a mother.
Have you videotaped it?
Well, not really. I give her. It's the thing is with her is, it's the tug, but it's also opposition reflex. In her is way stronger than a dog. It's
Oh, wow.
way
Okay.
stronger, and because of how much they rely on balance.
Okay. Yeah.
Being a bird and being what it is. But if she tugs everything and anything, and the more I don't let her win, the more pissed off she gets. So
Okay.
and she'll start to twist. Like she'll tug and tug and tug, and then if I give her, what I'm trying to do now is, um, I have this little cat mouse, a little cat toy that's a mouse. So I throw that. She goes and gets it. She'll bring it back, and then I'll throw it again, and then but not far, and then she'll stand on it like like a dog who's trying to shred something with its feet. So she'll
Hmm.
hold it like that and shred and shred and shred. But if I have anything metal or anything new and I put it in front of her, she grabs it and then she just tugs and tugs and tugs. She can't get enough of it. Yeah.
When she bites, does it hurt?
Sometimes it depends on if she gets real twitchy at night. So she bit me tonight a little bit in the chest, kind of hurt. But generally not me. When she's done this nonsense with Irina, like if Irina will come up and touch my shoulder, she'll reach out and like really try and nail her. So then it's got a little bit more force to it. But
It,
yeah.
is it a peck, like a chicken will peck you, or does she bite and like turn a little bit?
Yeah, she bites and holds on and then twists.
Oh, okay. Have you talked to the Birdman of Long Beach,
No.
Steve Garvin?
Who?
Steve Garvin?
No.
You certainly you know Steve. He's played Mondio for a while.
I feel
Um,
like I know that name.
yeah, Steve. Steve has messed around with Learberg a little bit. He spent a little time with Ed Frawley. Um, Steve is the Birdman. I mean, he's written papers on. He raises, breeds, all that. He doesn't. He's not into training the birds, but he might be able to give you some insight.
Yeah, because I'll tell you what, the guy that I talked to, like the number one guy, um, as far as training these crows, he trains them for like movies and stuff like that, and a bunch of things that you would be familiar with. For example, every crow you see in a movie is one of these crows.
Oh, really?
They,
Okay.
they just use a marker to paint them
Um,
black.
because
Yeah.
they're super smart, or what?
No, because it's illegal to have a crow here in the U.S.
Oh,
Unless
okay.
it's being rehabbed or it's for educational purposes. You can't keep a crow for the movies and things like that.
Wow.
Yep, so they just use these. But I talked to this guy, for about training for a while, and I don't know how to say this. Like he understands bird behavior, but when it came to actual like training, application, recognition, or manipulation, you know, he got the suppression part real good because they are packish, and you do have to. Like I use deprivation and stuff, but also if she tries to fly away from me, I don't let her, and I restrain her, and I've held her, and I've done these types of things, so that I've had to. But I realized, wow, this guy, like, when it comes to actual animal training, he really doesn't know much. So there's not a. So this is anybody who can give me some more insight, because I'm just like, I wonder what is it. I'm on like Wikipedia and Google and stuff, like, what does it mean when she does this? How
Right.
come her feet are warm?
Well,
Whatever.
Steve may not know anything about her breed, but he knows birds.
Yeah.
but he really knows birds. So yeah, reach out to him.
I'm gonna, but you know, I would just assume that it's just like dogs. Dogs are dogs. You know, pit bulls are quirky, Malinois are quirky. I appreciate your insight because you've manipulated training. You've manipulated your pit bulls to get a high level of training, and that takes some serious strategy, patience, and crafty training and diligence, like I said. But you know, animals are animals, and if you kind of get the idea,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you've done it with, I mean, you've got the Schnauzer, you've got the Malinois, you've got the pit bulls, you know, so, and
I
now
got the
chickens.
chickens.
You got the chicken?
Got the chickens.
You
They
can,
come. They come when I call them.
do they?
Well, as soon as I open the slider, they come running because they
Do
know
they?
I'm going to feed them. If you feed them, they come to you.
Do they? Do they let you hold them and stuff like that? And
Some more than others. When they're well, I thought this. So this tells you how non-bird aware I am. I'm talking to Steve one day, and I was saying how it's really cool because, like, all of a sudden, my grandson's out there, and the birds are down low, and he's petting them, and they're just letting him do it. I'm like, wow, they're really taming up. He says, well, you know what they're doing, Larry? And I'm like, what? They're becoming sexually mature.
oh,
And if you're walking towards them and they go down, I can scoop them up, but I can't call them to me and they sit on my lap. I can call them to me; they'll sit on my lap and eat from my hand. Um, but I haven't put the time in like I should have. When they were younger, with the ones that had to go, I had a rooster that I loved. He would jump up and take things out of my hand, and he would heel if I had the food right here. He'd walk with his head up. But he had to go bye bye. I got
roosters
him.
are,
I got him a crow collar. Have you ever heard of one of those? Like a
no.
bar for crows, or excuse me, for roosters. Um, it just strangles them, is what it does. And I was afraid to put it on too tight. It muffles the crow. So I couldn't keep him quiet.
Well, I remember my brother Mitch. I don't think you met Matt, right? You remember brother
Yeah.
Matt? Okay, so Mitch is in between me and Matt, and he got a ring one on a Corso that he bred. No. Schütze one on a Corso that he bred and trained and all that kind of stuff. So
Nice.
wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guy. And he had some chickens, and he had this rooster, and we talked a lot, and I talked to him on the phone, and he kept saying, "I'm gonna kill you, dude. I'm gonna kill you, dude." Like he kept, I'm like, "What is that?" And he's like, "This rooster is just, dude. I'm gonna kill you, right?" And I go over there, and what happened to that rooster? I killed him. It's just, yeah, he's kind of icy that way a little bit, but he just couldn't. They're difficult to have around. We have a super bad tick problem here, really, really bad, and I wanted to get chickens because of the eggs. And actually, Elena, who works for us, like pretty much our right hand girl who takes care of most of the kennel stuff. Her mom lives a mile this way, and she's got a bunch of chickens. So we ended up getting eggs from her.
Uh-huh.
But I wanted them for the ticks, and then I thought, okay, maybe guinea hens, you know. But it's just we have a lot of predators, and
Yeah.
you know. Do you deal with that? Do you have coyotes out there? Don't you?
We do, and people freak out because they're like, if my husband leaves early for work, goes down the street, and he can see a coyote standing at the end of the block. That's probably the biggest thing we had. In fact, I went hiking with a friend up to Hollywood Hill, a Hollywood sign, last Saturday, and as we were driving into our area, there's this ridge overlooking a dog park below, and there is a pack of coyotes just looking down below. And there are several cars going by. They didn't have a care in the world. And this is like 8 o'clock in the morning, so it's nice and light out. And yeah, people do, they complain about their little dogs or their cats disappearing, or they're finding the remains. So it does happen, but nothing like what you guys have.
Well, out here it's not. Well, we don't have coyotes here as much right now. We used to have them a lot worse, but in the city they're having problems with whatever they call it, encroachment or whatever, where they're coming in from, but we have, I actually, I got to get a game camera because there is something that is pooping on my sidewalk every night,
Hmm.
and I don't know what it is.
Oh,
I'm not,
right.
it's like it's not a raccoon, I don't think. I don't think it's a skunk. I don't think it's a possum. It's not a rabbit. It's not a deer, which we have tons of rabbits. Not a cat.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's like freaking me out to the point where I need to borrow it. But I'm not going to go out and buy a game cam to find out what's pooping on my sidewalk. I'd rather just borrow someone for somebody or just stay up one night and try and see.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't have too much anymore with the coyotes and with the dogs around. The dogs help kind of keep them away.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just people, I hear about it in California all the time. Coyotes killing chickens, because you guys apparently in California you don't need a lot of land to have chickens.
No, I'm in a residential area and I have chickens in the backyard. As long as you have like, I don't know what the exact space is, square foot per chicken. But yeah, a lot of, and that's why I got them really was for the eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a school too. My grandson's school, they've got a pretty nice coop. And they've got their little urban farm, and they do they grow peppers and corn and the different herbs, and they've got the chickens. Yeah, so it's kind of cool.
At school.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, it's come a long way, isn't it cool, huh? How it's all come back around.
It's really neat.
Yeah, 20 years ago they weren't doing anything like that.
Oh, heavens no.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Leri, how do people find you out there? How do they follow you? You're on Instagram. You're on Facebook.
I'm new to Instagram. I'm kind of getting a little more away from Facebook and more into Instagram. I like it a lot, but it's just my name, Leri Hanson, at on Facebook and on Instagram.
And YouTube too, you said?
Yeah, YouTube is Pitbull Leri.
Pitbull Leri.
Bulleri, all one word.
Okay. So people can find you there. Yeah. Cool. Well, we have to do this again. We have to do it again.
I have to tell you, I told you, I don't even talk on the phone. I'm a texter or an email. And so I was kind of stressing out about this, but I love you, Mark, and I really enjoyed myself a lot tonight. So thank you for inviting me. And I do hope to chat with you again.
Well, we will definitely do it again. And thank you. And I love you too, Leri. I think you're the sweetest. You're just sweet as the day is long. You are. Yeah. So much insight.
Right.
Okay, you too. I'll send you a link when this is up, okay?
Great. Thanks.
Take care.
One step at a time.